Welcome, everybody, to Rock Rants, starring your favorite retired streamers. My name is Smiggy. I am joined here by my lovely co-host, the artist formerly known as Araram. This is Ryan. This will be a podcast. They gave another white man a microphone for useless reasons. Luckily, we're keeping some sort of diverseness to this. But what we are here to do is hopefully weekly, we'll see how schedules end up working out, is pick a rock album and simply review it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, our personal opinions, bring some background about the band, some background about music itself, as Ryan himself is almost called you a magician, a musician, and I like to yell, get loud, and have loud opinions on the microphone. So thank you all for joining us for episode 1, where we will be doing Sleep Token's album, Even in Arcadia. This one has been a bit of a divisive album, so hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'm going to pass it over to Ryan to kind of open us up with some stuff about Sleep Token.
Yeah, so there seemed to be a lack of reviews or podcasts about rock/metal related things, so we thought we would review all the new albums that came out. By the time we're recording this album's been out for a little over a month, I think, but it's still fairly new. So before I get into it, Smigs, what's your experience with Sleep Token, and do you know anything about the band, or do you just listen to them on the occasion?
So you kind of nailed it at the end there. I listen to pretty much every style of music that isn't country music. My favorite is hard rock, metal, heavy metal. I tend to lean more towards thrash metal, your Metallicas, all the stuff that your dad would probably listen to, right? Those hard, those 2-3 chords, whatever. Sleep Token in particular, I actually was completely unaware of who they even were until I want to say maybe even last year, where one of our friends I saw was listening to it. The Discord was showing me that they were listening to it, and I went ahead and peeped a few of the songs off various albums and whatnot, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. It's a little bit different than the style of rock that I usually listen to. I have some opinions that I'll be getting into once we get into it, but overall I would say my experience with Sleep Token is basically just a song here and there. The only full album I've listened through is this current one. So I would say definitely a casual fan, but based on the question that you were asking, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you are a bit more in the weeds about them. And to finish the answer is I don't know anything about the band themselves.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I listen to them when I'm like doing other things, if that makes sense, driving, doing yard work, that sort of stuff, but never really like sat down and actually just listen to a full album, just reading the lyrics, actually paying attention to what's going on. They've always kind of been on in the background. When I first heard them, I'll be honest, I didn't really like them. But then I heard a song called The Summoning that probably a lot of Sleep Token fans are familiar with, and something just clicked, and they became one of my favorites. So I did start listening to them quite a bit. But I don't know much about the band themselves, and when I tried to look up some research about them, turns out not a whole lot is known about them either, because for those who don't know, Sleep Token is completely anonymous. I don't know if there's some hardcore super fans out there that do know who the members are, or at least who the singer is. But yeah, for the majority of people, no one actually knows who the members are. So the frontman goes by Vessel, from what I've seen, and then every other member is just numbered. And like they stylize in Roman numerals, so they have Vessel, they have 2, 3, and 4. So
who used to do that? What band that we know used to? Was it Korn, or was it Slipknot? It was Slipknot. That's right. Okay, yeah. That. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, I wish they were as good as Slipknot. Continue.
See, they did the number thing, and I haven't read the whole article, but Corey Taylor actually did comment on Sleep Token and said that it reminds him of early Slipknot. I don't know if he was talking about the music or about them wearing masks and the numbers. But yeah, he didn't say it. As far as I know, it didn't seem like it was like an insult, like they were copying or anything like that. But yeah, he did say that they reminded them of early Slipknot. So if there's any hardcore Sleep Token fans out there, I apologize, because I don't know if you've seen this. This band does have like a cult following. So the people who get into this, they get really into it because a lot of the songs have some pretty cool lore behind it, which we'll get into just a little bit about the lore. Because again, I don't want to be wrong. If anyone does listen to this, you can correct me later. But Vessel is the name of the frontman. Like I said, I found out that maybe this might change your opinion on the music, Smigs, if you weren't a big fan. But he writes all of the music himself, writes and records everything except the drums, which the drummer is incredible. I want to throw that out there. But yeah, this is like, from what I've seen, Sleep Token is pretty much his baby, and he takes care of all of the music and recording besides the drums. He apparently got the name Sleep Token because there's an ancient deity named Sleep that appeared to him in a dream, and it promised him glory and magnificence if he followed sleep. So each song that they write and record is an offering to that ancient deity, or a token, which is where the name Sleep Token comes from. So I don't know much of the lore beyond that. It does seem pretty interesting. As we'll get into later at the end of this, I do want to go into about this album's release and promotion, because it seems like puzzles and all that sort of stuff are a big part of this, and like putting pieces together to figure out the lore.
I will say the idea of the deity named Sleep is something that your daughter would run into your bedroom in the middle of the night having a nightmare talking about. I'm sorry, that's just so funny to me. Let me unpack what you just said. Brilliant amount of information. I actually love the idea of being a bit more cryptic. I love the idea of the reason I like rock and metal a lot more than so many other genres of music, especially country, which I will dog country a lot. I won't apologize if you're a fan of country. Too bad. Regardless, I like rock and metal so much is because the way that they use their analogies, their comparisons, the lyrics, everything, it's not direct words. It's not even necessarily direct messaging. It is hiding it beneath layers, like a supreme crunch wrap of symphony in there. Basically, I like sometimes being able to shut my brain off and listen to cool drums, cool guitars, all of that. I like being able to look up lyrics and be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that until the fifth time I listened to it, because that's replayability from the video game world, right? It gives you something new to listen to every single time, especially for rock bands who do take a bit more time to come out with new albums because of all the things that have to go into it. I mean, like you said, if Corey Taylor is saying that he's reminded of early Slipknot days, that even if he would have meant it as an insult, which I'm sure you're right, he didn't, it's just not an insult, because that's one of the greatest rock bands of all time, at least one of the most noticed ones of all time. So saying completely anonymous, I respect that. I mean, we come from the streaming world, the online gaming scene, so it's not like, we've all used aliases. I mean, I call myself Smiggy still. It's not exactly my real name, if nobody could have guessed. So I love things like that. But to jump right into what I thought of this album, I thought this was the most painstakingly mid-average to below average rock album I have heard in such a long time. I'll be honest. And the first comparison I kind of thought of was, have you seen Thor Love and Thunder?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So, exactly, right? So to me, Thor Love and Thunder and Sleep Token's Even in Arcadia suffers from the same thing, where they actually have a lot of really good ideas, but they had too many of them. They tried to mash so many things into, in Thor's case, one movie, into this case, one album. And I think it's kind of epitomized by the very first song on the album, Look to Windward. It's an initial problem that you and I both had with Avenged Sevenfold's most recent album, Life is But a Dream. Which off the top of my head, I can't think of which song, but we both said within like the first, I think it's We Love You, within like the first 45 seconds of the song, you hear 3 different rhythms basically. And
yeah,
you can make that work. You can make that work beautifully. And I think the more I listened to the album, the more the songs kind of flowed through. They do balance that out better as the album goes. But, in sadly a what have you done for me lately type of society, 10-second clips, this, that, the other. If you just listen to the first 3 songs, they simultaneously jam-packed 800 ideas and different flows and ways of going about the song, while also making basically the first 3 songs indistinguishable from each other. It threw my mind for such an insane loop, but it was a very sour way for me to start the album.
That's fair. And for anyone listening, in case you haven't realized, we are going to be honest about our album reviews. So if there's things we don't like about it, we're going to tell the truth. And also, if Smigs and I disagree, we're going to talk about it and discuss together. So I have to say, I totally understand where you're coming from. And that comparison about Avenged Sevenfold, for anyone who's heard the song We Love You, that's the one we're talking about, where it is just so many different, crazy, chaotic things at once. That's honestly one of my favorite things. And people will hear this a lot. System of a Down is one of my favorite bands ever, probably favorite of all time. I think they
Bad
do. Come on. So is Avenged Sevenfold. I think they do where the song sounds so different and they switch it up, going fast to slow, heavier to softer. They do a good job with it. And I think Sleep Token tries to do the same thing, where it's crazy hearing the same song where it'll be really, really slow piano, and then by the end it's really heavy. I think they do it well sometimes, but what you said about not being able to distinguish between the first three tracks, I think sometimes the slower parts and the transitions into the different sounding, like different styles, I think it overstays its welcome sometimes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I could take away from this was it's like on the song The Summoning, there's like a break in between where it transitions into the completely different outro, but man, it's just like synthesizers and stuff that doesn't even have a beat for like a minute and a half, which doesn't sound that long. But when you're listening to a 6-minute song and a minute and a half of it is just nothing, it bothers me a little bit. So I think they had that problem for a few songs on this, but overall, I think it was pretty successful. I did enjoy it, especially the second and third time through.
I think it's fair, and I think, like you said, and kind of what I was alluding to as well, the first few songs, I think they do those transitions miserably bad. I think, like you said, some of the transitions overstay their welcome. It's hardly even a rock album for most of it, which is fine. You could be a rock band that doesn't stick to just traditional guitar, drums, this, that, the other. But there's like so many, 808s, which to my understanding is basically just drums anyway, so I'm kind of talking out of my rear end. But it almost sounds more like a hardcore hip hop more than a rock thing. I wrote this down somewhere and I can't find it because I wrote too many notes. But regardless, go ahead.
While you're looking for it, I know what you mean, because when I first saw them, and if you look at their logos and the way that they look, and they're categorized into the metal scene a lot. When I first listened to them, I think that's why I didn't like them, is because I was expecting something heavy and some kind of, like, everyone was calling them unique, which they are, but I was expecting some crazy unique metal that I've never heard before. I really wouldn't even call them like a metal band. It's like what you said. There is more like hip hop elements and stuff than I would say metal elements.
So when I was looking stuff up about them too, granted much more minimal than you were because I like to go off vibes and whatnot, man. Big surfer boy over here, not really. Regardless, the bands that I saw them compared to were Spirit Box, Deftones, Bad Omens, and a few others. But I agreed with some of that, but I also kind of heavily disagreed with others, because bands like Spirit Box and whatnot, they tend to stick to more traditional hard rock metal. They get away from it a little bit, obviously, but they kind of... Like I said, and I found it, I said it's not a terrible album, but it's a terrible rock album. Most songs are hardly rock. They're more grungy hip hop. And I compared it to, if you remember the Linkin Park breakoff band, Fort Minor.
I don't know.
They had that 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will. That's Fort Minor.
That, yeah.
So Shinoda, who did like the non-screaming parts, the non-Chester Bennington parts of the singing in Linkin Park, he was Fort Minor. He was their lead guy. In parts of Sleep Token, not completely, but they remind me of that, and Linkin Park themselves to an extent, where they definitely are rock way more often than not, and they have traditional rock elements and stuff, but they break away from it a lot too. I just don't think that Sleep Token does it as well as, like, I'll stick to Linkin Park because I think Fort Minor was a few flashes in the pan, but that's kind of what it reminded me of more. And so that's why I think it's certainly not a bad album. I just think if you're looking for a traditional rock album, metal album to listen to, this one just isn't the one. And like I said, it compared it to bands like Spirit Box, Deftones, Bad Omens. Granted, I listen to Spirit Box and I don't really listen to the other two, but I did pull up a few songs from Deftones and Bad Omens, and it does sound a lot like that. But again, it's that contrast of, it just really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for just good music, sure, maybe you like this album. maybe you do. If you're looking for good rock, I don't think you're going to dig this album.
Have you ever gone into a movie? Maybe you've seen the trailers, maybe you're just going from the title, and the movie ends up being completely different from what you expected, or maybe even from what it was advertised. I hate to talk about like Kangaroo Jack. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I thought that movie was going to be like a whimsical movie about a talking kangaroo, and I went and saw it and was bored out of my mind because it had nothing to do with that. I guess the point is, if you're going into this expecting, like what you said, a Spirit Box, Deftones, some kind of crazy metal thing, you're not going to get it. But if you go in with that different mindset, knowing what to expect from Sleep Token, you might enjoy it more. Because like I said in the beginning, I didn't like them at first. I was like, really don't know what the hype is all about, but kind of changing my expectations or knowing what to expect. Yeah, I enjoy them. Like I said, they're one of my favorites now. And I really enjoyed this album with a couple exceptions. There's a couple songs on here that I'm like, this is strange, especially in comparison to the other songs, which we can get into because I wrote down a few notes about different songs as well. So
yeah. So the first one I have that is, again, dogging it. I promise we'll have some good opinions about this. It's just on the latter half of my notes here. Regardless, though, I think the song Emergence, it's the second song on the album. I wanted to throw my phone through the mirror at Planet Fitness today listening to it, because it was like, what kills me so much about when they miss is their lead singer actually has a great voice for any band, really, but for a rock band,
incredible.
he is incredible vocalist. The beat in the timings of the instrumentals as they tried to coexist with the vocals was miserable. It felt so painfully offbeat the whole song. It felt so offbeat.
That's funny that you say that, because I wrote down at the bottom standout songs to me, like in a good way, and Emergence was one of them. That's one that stood out to me in a positive way. I said that the song, like some of the notes that I wrote down, the song flows a lot better than the song before, while still incorporating different elements, including that smooth jazzy outro, because it had like horns or a sax or something at the end, and it was awesome. Also, I think I have a soft spot for this song because before it came out, they put a little teaser out. I think I was scrolling through Facebook. It was like 30 seconds. And I'm pretty sure this is the one that Addie was dancing to, and she asked to listen to it like 6 times. So I had to listen to the same verse because she was going she was going crazy listening to it. So maybe that's a little bit of a soft spot, but I really enjoyed it.
I mean, as men, we can only be swayed by the women in our lives, I suppose. They have the most influence. But that's what hurt me the most about this song is I do think, and like you said, that jazzy outro, that they did a lot of good things that you can do when you step away from the traditions of rock, but it just didn't. It was almost like we talked a lot before when we were setting up here to make sure that our audio and video sync up, and thank God for things like OBS. It usually just happens naturally for us, but it's like they recorded the vocals on one program, the instrumentals on another, and then tried to sync them up and just missed by like 2 beats, just like 2 beats, because the instrumentals are amazing and the vocals are amazing. They just don't line up for me.
Now I have to go back and listen to it when we're done to see if I hear it now. Like it's not lining up correctly. Now I have to see now.
Well, I'm interested. I'm interested though. You said you have a few that stick out to you other than Emergence, because I just grounded that one into dust. What's another one?
Yeah, the other one that stood out was, I mean, whenever I eat this thing, I always call it a caramel, but he says caramel in the song. I thought Caramel was great. I think that was the first or second single that they put out, and I was like, this is garbage. This is absolute trash. And then I listened to it again, and I'm like, maybe this wasn't as bad as I thought. And by the time I listened to the album, when we were listening to this, because I think I listened to the album 3 times through, I'm like, this one's awesome. I'm a sucker for any song that starts off slow and just builds, whether it like builds slowly throughout it. And that one did. By the end, I'm like, yeah, this is one of their best songs that they've made. Not only that, but the lyrics are really good, which I'll get into the lyrics a little bit later. So we'll just put a pin in that to talk about lyrics in a bit.
I agree with that, though, because when I listened to this the first 2 times, I also thought it was hot trash, put it in the dumpster, burn it up. However, I re-listened to it today, and that dumpster fire came back and lit a fire into my soul, baby boy. I'll tell you something. This song is good. This song is great. I think it builds up. It's everything that you do. I hate going back to the same idea of breaking away from traditions, but this song, it does and it doesn't. And it has changes in the flow throughout it, but it all, like you said, they built it up instead of just being like part A, part B, part C, and like no transition in the middle. Just yeah. And I think this one actually goes really well. Even the way that the drums go through, it's nothing. It's not even crazy drum work. It just kind of keeps the lyrics moving through. This does seem like one of those songs. I know you said you'll get into lyrics in a little bit, but this does seem like one of the songs that they prioritize the lyrics over the flow and the emotional feel of the song. So, not to dive too deep, but a lot of the ways that I listen to music is I'll eventually dive down rabbit holes and whatnot and get into the messaging and this, that, the other. But I am a very, for people who are unaware of my content from before this, I am extremely neurodivergent. I have severe ADHD. I have unconfirmed autism. So whenever I go and listen to things or any sort of media that I watch, listen to, whatever, I let my body kind of tell me what I feel about it rather than trying to figure it out on my own. And if my brain say likey, it likey. If it say this hot shit, then this hot shit. And originally it did tell me that this song was hot shit, but the more I listened to it, I was like, oh, wait a minute now, white boy, let him cook a little bit here. Let's see what he's got going. And maybe it's a bit of a comparison to the rest of the songs that I do think fell flat, but this one kind of hit all of the right notes where they let the lyrics be the priority here. So when you do those deeper dives, you kind of, once you understand the song more, you get more of an appreciation for it.
Completely agree. And it's happened with other bands too. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's definitely been other songs that I just thought were hot garbage the first time I heard it. And, you know, the more you listen to it, the more other things stand out to you and you start to like it. So before I get into another one, did you have a standout song? Positive or negative?
I did actually. Let's see. It was Dangerous, the number 4 track. I thought this again was just another one that the buildup of it is really good. It's a bit more, I don't want to say symphonic because there's actually hardly that many instrumentals at the beginning, but he uses a bit more of an upbeat tone and voice to it, whereas his voice is usually rather deeper and strong. He uses a very strong set of vocals, which is why I actually like a lot of what he does. But this one kind of is just a bit more easy on the ears. It's a bit more kind of just sit back, grab your coffee, relax kind of beat. And then it eventually gets in about halfway through the song into a bit more of, like I was comparing it to earlier, that Fort Minor stuff where it's not guitars and drums, it's 808s and it's sort of just hip hop beats almost. But again, another song where I think the lyrics themselves, and then as you get probably to like the 2/3 mark of the song and beyond it, they come out with very melodic guitars. It kind of stepped away from what I thought the rest of the album kind of presented. Yes and no, I guess is what I should retract on that, because it does try a lot of things, like I said, Thor, Love, and Thunder Syndrome. But I think the transitions, again, it hits the right beat every time, literally and figuratively hits the right beat every time. And in another song where when you look up the lyrics and you begin to understand the song a bit more, I thought it was really good.
I think when it gets like heavier, quote unquote, like how you were saying, it's different. It doesn't sound like all the other songs when those get heavier, where they're just like, all right, time to throw on the distortion, you know, this sort of stuff. Same old, same old. It sounded different. I agree with you. That was a good one. And speaking of good ones, the last one I had for one that stood out to me, if I'm saying this right, is Damocles.
Interestingly enough, I'll let you go on your rant here, but originally, because I don't remember what I was doing at the gym, but this song came on and I was like, I was running on the treadmill and I had to like through heavy breath, through labored breath, because I'm grossly out of shape as a 31-year-old man. I was like, this is the best song of the album. This is the best song I've heard on the album yet. I ended up liking Dangerous a bit more, but I agree. I think this one goes very hard.
Yeah, and one of the reasons it stood out to me is because like I said, there's a difference if I throw on an album while I'm doing yard work or driving versus actively listening to it and having the lyrics pulled up and trying to pay attention and think for things to write down. While I was critiquing this album, I was going through and I was thinking about how things all kind of sounded the same. You know, they had similar build-ups. Like we said about Dangerous, that one does do it differently sometimes, but it started to sound a little bit samey by this point in the album because this one's later on. But then all of a sudden, I saw these lyrics come up. I wrote them down. Well, I know I should be touring. I know these chords are boring, but I can't always be killing the game. No golden grand pianos or voices from the shadows will do anything but feel the same. And if you read other lyrics, to me, I interpret it as that Sleep Token got big pretty fast. I mean, they put their work in, but they kind of exploded and got really popular. People have really high expectations for their music. To me, this is him saying, like, I'm trying. You know, we're trying to come up with different things. We're trying to make it more grand than the last time, but I don't know if it's always going to work. So it's like when I'm sitting here critiquing this and talking about, you know, this song sounds like this, or the chorus sounds good on here, the build up sounds the same, and he's acknowledging it in this album. Like, I'm trying, but it might not always work out. Like, okay, well, we just got called out. So there's other lyrics in there too to like support that. I mean, that might not even be what the song's about, but that's what it felt like to me. So that was a pretty cool feeling.
So crazily enough, one of the things I've written down here is I actually didn't know, because obviously the title of the album is Even in Arcadia, and I was like, well, what the hell does that even mean in the first place? So I was like, I could probably understand the messaging. I did. So
because
Arcadia,
I forgot, so I'm glad you did.
Okay, so Arcadia, while also being the name of a few towns, cities, and various places and whatnot, I think one in Washington State, I don't know. Regardless, it basically means utopia. And what I thought was very interesting about the album as a whole, and actually the entire thing that you just soul read from lyrics and whatnot, is as Arcadia means utopia. I think the flow fits what you would expect from to paint the mural here. It's like you're at the pearly gates of a utopia that you weren't expecting, essentially. So it's a very serious entrance into a troubled utopia with the heavy beats, obviously his voice being naturally very heavy as well. And then the lyrics, like you said, and the lyric that I wrote down is I believe this is from the very first song, but it's even in this garden, I am God of the gaps. I am the demon of Sodom. I am the blood of an angel. Skip the line and said, even I have forgotten. How could I have already lost my way like this? Which, from an album that references utopia, we all understand what a utopia is. It's usually an idealistic world that you get to live in, a heaven of sorts for our religious fans. But it is clearly, you know, even in utopia. So these troubles, these feelings, these however you want to take it, like you said, if you blow up that quickly, there are a lot of pressures. So some of the justifications you can have, good, bad, or indifferent, because at the end of the day, you know, the consumer market will be the perception, and perception is reality. But, you know, some of the ways you can justify what they do, the ways they try to change it so drastically throughout the songs, and even just within the same song trying to be so different, is when you blow up like that. And we used to see it in the content creation space all the time, is when you find something that works, you can go down one of two paths. You can say, okay, I know A works, I'm going to keep doing A until A stops working. Or, in my personal preference, you can look at a style like that and be like, well, I don't want to be the guy that only does A. I want to do a little bit of B. Give me some C. I want to even dabble in a little D. Happy Pride Month. But that's what I like it when people in any sort of media try to take those chances. So sometimes when I do critique this album, I have to do it with a bit of a heavier heart, because it's clearly, like you said, a band that hit success almost too fast, which sounds kind of dumb, because that's the point, right? Is to blow up as fast as you can. But, you know, it's so easy to separate the art from the artist and just be like, I'm listening to this band. They are robots that produce music. No, they're human beings. They have to deal with the pressures of fame and not falling into, you know, being typecasted in their music, things like that. So I think the idea that they do try to change it up a lot while bringing up, apparently throughout multiple songs, because you named a different one, I named the first one, that they are clearly troubled in their expedition here to remain not only anonymous but sane and unique. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because 2 songs real quick about lyrics. One we'd already talked about. There's other ones that I wrote down, but that was great bringing that up first. Caramel, from what I've gathered, is about the difficulties of being an anonymous band and trying to stay anonymous, especially when you've now gathered a cult-like following so quickly and people always trying to figure out who you are. And I didn't write any specific lyrics down, but to me, that's what that was about, was the frustrations of people doing that to him. But also, it seems like he understands he's only at where he is because of the fans. So it's like a love-hate relationship almost. I love you guys so much, but please give me my peace and my privacy, is almost what Caramel, that's how I interpret it anyway. And so what you just mentioned about them being so popular so fast and having that love-hate relationship with the fans, and like, this is what I always wanted, but you know, even in this utopia, you think when you make it that big and successful, it's, you know, you've reached your goals, but there's still some negativity there. Even though they've reached it, there's another lyric that I wrote down from the same song, not Caramel, Damocles, where he says, "No one else knows that I've got a problem. What if I can't get up and stand tall? What if the diamond days are all gone? And who will I be when the empire falls? Wake up alone and I'll be forgotten." So it's almost like he understands the success, how fast it's happened. And it's almost like, can I continue to go up from here? Is this the peak? Is it all going to fall down? And if and when it does, is he just going to be forgotten about? I think it's safe to say that Sleep Token could end right now and they won't be forgotten about by people. But that pressure of going through that, that's crazy. I mean, that's tough. Their last album they did before this was extremely successful. They're playing big stadiums and things like that. It's probably something you don't want to go away, but at the same time, you know that everything's going to come to an end at some point. And I think my problem with some of the lyrics on this album is we just went into this deep conversation about that and how awesome that is. To transition into something else, there's a song on here called Provider. I thought that song sounded like Imagine Dragons with slightly better lyrics. And you know my thoughts on Imagine Dragons. I hate them.
Most people's thoughts on Imagine Dragons.
One of the lines I wrote down from Provider is, "'Cause you've been hitting my phone so hard, I found it breathing through a tube in the ICU." How is that a line on an album like the same as what we were just talking about? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm gonna ask you to read those lyrics again for me.
Yeah. "'Cause you've been hitting my phone so hard, I found it breathing through a tube in the ICU."
In ICU, I believe, is the next set of lyrics. Which I thought was, first off, just bars. If that was a hip-hop song, we're going double platinum on a beat. Regardless, though, you know what, though? It does make you wonder, because the sad reality of a lot of rock bands, and maybe this is more towards the old 90s hair bands where it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll and stuff, but a lot of rock bands, and probably realistically a lot of musicians and bands, period, do fall into this identity crisis, this, like we both have already said, the blowing up too fast kind of thing. A lot of things, a lot of routes that converge into a castle of sadness, unfortunately. But it's also a beautiful damnation, because that raw emotion, those feelings, and I brought up Linkin Park earlier, and if you go back and listen to a lot of Linkin Park songs, I mean, it was pretty obvious because their lyrics are a lot more straightforward, but
it hits hard now.
Right, but and obviously with the untimely demise of Chester Bennington, like, you can tell that there was a primal feeling. He wasn't writing lyrics that he thought were going to hit big. He was writing lyrics that were truly thoughts and emotions that were going on in his body. So it's such a weird thing to say, but you kind of like to see a band have this kind of struggle, because then that, more often than not, does tend to produce really good music. You hate to see it in general because, again, that human element, you don't want to see anybody go through that kind of struggle. But traditionally in rock specifically, when bands kind of hit this weird stride of who am I, what am I, sadness, or maybe not even sadness, just being overwhelmed, some sort of negative emotion, it tends to lead to really good things. And the more we talk about these lyrics and whatnot, the more I'm kind of being turned on my thoughts on the album, and the more I kind of get excited for potential future projects for them, because again, that kind of raw emotion just makes great music.
Yeah. I don't live here, but close enough to travel. They're going to be playing at a music festival in Kentucky. I want to go so bad because I'm like, I don't know when Sleep Token is going to be anywhere closer, because they're one of those bands. They're going to be like international. They're not just touring North America. They're going to be all over the world. So I really want to go because I've also heard their live shows are incredible, which I think is something to factor into this when it comes to the music itself. How does it translate live? I heard they're incredible and really, really good, but I'd like to find out myself. But you're right. When it comes to it, it is unfortunate that going through hard times, it kind of does produce good artwork. Like, it just, sometimes you need an outlet, some kind of creativity. And yeah, it seems like that's what they were going through for this album. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, my mind's not going to be changed on some of these songs. Some of them I just thought were boring. Overall, though, I'm giving the album like a 7. It's like a 7 or 7.5 for me out of 10.
Yeah, man. Opinions.
You had to rate it.
Everybody got one. So
what would you give it?
What I have written is a 5.5 out of 10. I think the highest I would currently be willing to bump that is a 6.5, because I do think the lyrics you read, and even the ones that I reread and all of that, and again, remembering those human elements, is like a 6.5, because I do also think you have a really good point where, unlike a lot of other types of music, rock is one that's kind of meant to be enjoyed with people or in a live setting. You see things like Warped Tour. Obviously, we went to Sonic Temple a few years back, and things of that nature, where, not to say that all music can't be like that, obviously, right? But like, if you listen to like rap or hip hop, that's good to, like, I don't know, just sit and like vibe out to, or like be in the gym and like just kind of nod your head to, yada yada. Rock, you want to like get in the mosh pit, you want to feel what they're feeling, this, that, the other. And I would say pretty much every band that I have seen live, every rock band that I have seen live, including all the ones we saw at Sonic Temple, Avenged Sevenfold, I've seen Metallica a number of times now. We found bands made through that. You love to see those types of bands that do enjoy staying amongst the people. So I think a lot of what you were saying earlier too, of like, hey, we love you guys, but you got to let us chill a little bit. I love the acknowledgement of things like that, because it's like, you know, whenever you get too famous or blow up too big, you become so distanced from the human experience. You become very unrelatable, I guess is the best way to say it. And that kills content in every genre, whether it's gaming, YouTube stuff, Twitch stuff, whether it's music, whether it's whatever. The second comedians actually specifically are probably the biggest offenders of this. Whenever you become too famous and too detached from the day-to-day of the working class, basically, you fall off of a cliff very hard, because then nobody can relate to your music, and rock is all about relating and feeling the music. So I gave it a 5.5. I think after a lot of this, I would give it a 6.5. I think it's fair, because like you said, there's some of the songs, I hate to break it to any Sleep Token fans out there, fucking put me to sleep. Some of the songs are ass. Some of the songs are so bad. Some of the songs are really good though. And what I did say, the biggest positive I had written down is that it is a lyrically beautiful album. It captures the essence of the way rock is written, and I can't say enough good things about the lead singer's voice. It is the perfect voice for a rock band.
Completely agree. And yeah, do you want to hear what the critics said about it?
Run it.
I don't have any specific quotes, but it did get very, very mixed reviews. I didn't look at their previous albums, but I imagine it's the same with all of their releases. They're probably used to hearing stuff like what we're saying about how this is one of the best songs I've heard in 5 years, and also this is one of the worst songs I've heard in 5 years. But I respect them for doing it. While some of their stuff we said does sound the same, I like that. I kind of like that you can get songs on there that can be a 10 out of 10 for you, or you're like, I'm never listening to this again. So, All Music, which I don't know many of these. I'm just going to be honest. I went to like the Billboard page and all that sort of stuff. All Music gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. NME gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but there were some other unfavorable reviews, like Pitchfork giving it 2.3 out of 10, which I don't know who does decimals like that. Like most of the time, you get like ads,
do a 5 or a 0. Nobody cares about you that much.
2.3 out of 10. Sputnik Music gave it a 1.5 out of 5. Despite some people giving it such terrible reviews, the album peaked at number 1 on several charts, including the US Billboard 200. So that's not the rock Billboard, metal Billboard, just the general all music. US Billboard 200, it did hit number 1, which is very difficult for rock and metal bands to do in recent years. Yeah. Ghost did it recently, if I'm remembering right. Before Ghost, I couldn't even tell you who it was. So pretty impressive if you ask me, even with some unfavorable reviews. There's no denying that these guys are huge. They're good at what they do, even if there are some misses.
Yeah, and I just went into their Spotify discography, and it looks like their first album came out in 2019. Now, 6 years is a long time. It's longer than any of my relationships have ever lasted, anything like that. But 6 years is an infancy for a musician of any genre, let alone a rock band where you know your albums tend to take a year, 2, 3 years to come out because of all the work that has to be put into it, and not having one of your band members be like Lars, the drummer of Metallica, and just think that he's better than God himself and have a falling out for a while. But regardless, 6 years actually for a band like this is they're still in their infancy. So like you said, it is actually a really good thing to have some 10 out of 10s, some 1 out of 10s, because it at least means you're trying. Because like I said, my favorite thing in content creation is not to typecast yourself into something. You know, like God forbid that I can't even think of a band really that I would even put into this that I've like stopped listening to, but I'm sure everybody listening can think of one band or a different genre of music where it's just, maybe it's still good, but you know exactly what you're going to get from the artist every time they come out with a new single or a new album or whatever. I like bands that take those chances. So if 6 years in, they're still missing, but they're hitting really hard when they do, I can get with that. I can have my patience about it. I'm not going to sit here and be a critic other than the fact that we started this podcast to be critics. So if that's what they got, I'm excited for the future of Sleep Token. I think giving it a 2.3, not only do you like to sniff your own shit, because who does decimals like that? That is insanity. But it obviously, opinions are what makes the world go round. Everybody has a different one. That's why we're doing this in the first place. But I like to say a lot that I found my way of life and my way of thinking that I don't think anybody else should or has to agree with. And I try to think that way for other people too. But if you give this album a 2.3 out of 10, I think your head is so far up your own ass that you're breathing out of your own neck still somehow.
Yeah, there's nothing that effective on this album to me to give it a 2.3. Like there is nothing that I found so repulsive.
Like like my original 5.5. Right. It's just like my original 5.5. I was like, oh man, that makes it sound like it's like way worse than it is. Because like you said, they hit, they miss. That's fine. And maybe that is a 5, maybe that's a 6, or like you said, a 7, 7.5, whatever. So I don't know. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought the good songs were great, but I thought the subpar songs were miserable. Kind of to recap my thoughts on the whole thing is like, it's okay to take chances. It's okay to not hit traditions, but you have to be very careful with the ways that you do it. You can't just Thor Love and Thunder it where you slap ideas A, B, and C into the same song with no way to link them, to chain link them together. But a few of the songs, like you said, caramel, however people want to pronounce that, originally, one of my notes here was actually that it could be 2 or 3 different songs with the rhythm and flow switches, but I think that is probably the best example of how to do it the right way. So, you know, you don't have to stick to tradition, but There's ways to do it, and and hopefully they learn from this. It seems like they're invested enough into their audience and their music that they will learn from the downsides, but it's not like they didn't have great parts to it too.
I think they're really unique in the way that they experiment and the way that they sound. The thing is, after listening to how many albums now? 4 albums. A lot of their experimentation, it's like doing the same experiment over and over again, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
There was nothing crazy new that stood out on this. And even though I hope they don't go generic, I hope they kind of change up the experimentation going forward. I mean, no disrespect to Dave Grohl or anything, but the Foo Fighters, almost every single song of theirs sounds the exact same over their entire music history. When Foo Fighters would come out with a new song, before I had Bluetooth in my car and I had to listen to local radio where they promoted the Foo Fighters like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is very average. Like, this is unoffensive. It's fine. This is nothing spectacular. And that, like I said, this is nothing against Dave Grohl. That guy's awesome. He's extremely talented. I think that's why I get so frustrated, because it's almost like I know he can do better. I hope Sleep Token doesn't get stuck in a rut like that, where it's the same kind of experimentation every single time they come out with something new. So yeah, that's my final thoughts on the band. I was gonna talk about the album's promotional material. There's just too much. I would just be sitting here reading a Wikipedia entry, but long story short, if you or anyone who happens to be listening to this is interested, go read the Wikipedia article, just that section about how they promoted this, because there's stuff about creating new websites and finding hints in the source code and sending people to locations in Los Angeles and sorting people into different houses, Harry Potter style. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of cool promotional material with this, if the puzzle solving treasure hunt kind of thing is your thing.
Yeah, I crazily enough, as you mentioned Dave Grohl, I just saw an Instagram reel of his where he was like, yeah, I think Dave Grohl's also great. I think he's a good person, this, that, the other. And he obviously has made a bunch of hits, however you want to take that, with various bands. But the conversation he was having, whatever interview it was, I couldn't tell you. I just watched a 30-second clip. But he was basically like, he's like, I'm a good drummer, but I want people to stop saying I'm the most creative drummer on the planet, because I just sample and steal stuff from other from other bands. Or like, I can't remember. It was something he did for Nirvana, which I'd get crucified for not remembering, because I'm sure it's one of the biggest hits of all time. But he was like, it was just like this old like 80s hip hop R&B band. It wasn't even like a rock band. He's like, go listen to that song and listen to the rhythm. Now come back and listen to this. That's all I did with it. So I think it's crazy, because I think you nailed Dave Grohl to the cross there, and it seems like he agrees. But also he's
incredibly talented.
Yeah,
a more talented songwriter than I could ever hope to be. And like I said, I think that's why I get so frustrated. I think he's capable of much more than what he was putting out. Let's say like mid 2000s, 2010s. It all sounded the same. I'm sorry, it was safe dad rock. But go on, I interrupted.
No, you're good. Because what if I say I'm not like the others? You'd be lying, Dave Grohl. You're exactly like them. You are a pretender. But and this comes from a guy that when I had my long hair, whenever we went to Sonic Temple, somebody tapped me on the back and said, "Oh my God, you're Dave Grohl. Can I have your autograph?" And they were dead ass serious. So I took that as an honor. Yeah, I took a picture even after they realized I wasn't, which was hilarious. But I to the second point you were making there about going into their Wikipedia and stuff, we love supporting. I used to say it on Twitch all the time. We love supporting those who support us. So if you go and look up stuff about a band that so clearly cares about their progression and their audience, you know, I think anybody who actually cares about the music and the process and stuff. This is why I think this podcast ends up working kind of pretty well, is because I tend to go a bit more vibes based. I just kind of listen. Like I said, I let my brain and my body tell me. Whereas you are a musician, you know how to play instruments, you understand things about the music that I just simply don't, like terms, this, that, the other, how things are supposed to go. And even no matter what kind of fan you are, one of those two opposites or somewhere in between, I think it's very cool to see a band want to stay engaged and want to stay relevant in a way that is like, hey, we know that we are who we are because of you guys. And even though we're saying anonymous, we're going to give you all this shit to stay engaged with us. You love to see stuff like that. So if you guys do enjoy Sleep Token, whether you agreed with us, disagreed with us, we're not your leaders, we're not your gods. You could disagree with us, we could disagree with you. That's the whole point of it all. That's the whole point of music. But if you enjoy a band like Sleep Token, it does seem like they enjoy you and us as well. So look up their stuff, listen, stream their music, give them their due, because the best way to make sure that a content creator, musician, put those in the same category for this, is to show them the love, especially in the day and age of streaming and whatnot, where it's kind of hard to tell people buying CDs, this, that, the other. It just, posting about them on social media, looking into their Wikipedia pages, supporting the things that they put out. It truly does drive the creation of things. And especially, like I said, in a medium like rock and roll or metal, where emotion is the name of the game, baby. So if you guys like Sleep Token, by all means, feel free to agree, disagree with us, but keep supporting loud and proud, because I think, like we've both kind of said here, they put a passion into it, and that's something you very much so like to see.
Very well said. Well, some closing thoughts kind of about the show and what we're doing going forward. So first, if you're listening to episode 1, thank you. Going forward, we want to review new rock and metal albums that come out, review/discuss, tell some facts about it like we did with Even in Arcadia this time, but there's not always a new rock or metal album release every week that we know of, at least. I mean, there's got to be with how many bands there are, but the point is, when there's stuff that there's no new stuff to do, we want to listen to maybe one of my favorite albums, talk about it, one of Smigs' favorite albums, talk about it, maybe get some people on here and listen to theirs beforehand, and we'll get 3 people on here to get full opinions. The good thing is, Smigs and I have been friends for a long time. We can disagree, and when we agree, it's great. When we disagree, we know how to go about it. I'm trying to say this without specifically mentioning Avenged Sevenfold, but I know it's coming because we have very different opinions on bands like Avenged Sevenfold. So those will be fun and interesting to listen to. But yeah, so that's what we're gonna do going forward. We're gonna have some new and old, classic, that sort of stuff to talk about and review. So,
yeah, Ryan nailed it perfectly. We are gonna try and stick to a bit more newer stuff, but like we said, it realistically, there's not always going to be something new, or at least that we know about, or quite honestly, we're both human beings as well, care to put the time into researching. I'm currently between jobs, but I will have a job again soon. Ryan has a full-time job, so we're going to try and do this weekly, but obviously people know how this kind of stuff goes, but the idea is, keep it centered to rock, listen to our favorite albums, and even if it ends up being something older, I think that's still really good, because that stuff has had time to kind of ferment and sit in people's brains, so there'll be more well-established opinions on things like that. For our video watchers on YouTube, it won't just be our 2 faces like this the whole time, every time. We're going to work on some ways, like when Ryan was looking up some stuff on Wikipedia, we'll have ways of showing what we're looking up and whatnot too, and anything that we can get away with DMCA free, or maybe we even test the waters, who knows. But there will be more to the video experience down the line. I can't guarantee that for the next episode, even the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, but we're working on it. For our audio listeners, you wouldn't have even known that we had a video, so good on you. But we do plan on posting this to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. And we're going to hopefully try and do this every week. So like I said, we support those who support us. So if you guys have any comments, whether you agree, disagree, whether you just want to post something about the band, whether you want to post a potential album that you would like to see done, or a certain band that you don't care what album it is, you just want to hear about the band, we are open to all opinions. It's what makes the world go round. It's what makes our content, well, it's what makes us have content, to be honest. So yeah, I think if that is all for this time, I think it was a pretty successful episode 1, and we'll see where this all ends up down the road. Like I said, we're going to try and add as much to this as we can within reason of us having jobs and lives and all of that. So we'll see. But as the name implies, thank you for rocking with us. My name is Smiggy. I will let Ryan do his own little outro. No, that's Ryan. Okay. Thank you for rocking with us. And that was Sleep Token even in Arcadia. So, you guys got some shit to say. Say it loud, say it proud. And we'll see what we end up doing next week. We should actually probably figure out, maybe we'll down the line make sure we know what we're doing the next time so we can say it
So I
at
was
the
just
end.
looking up the release because I thought Baby Metal's new album was coming out like any day, and it got delayed to August 8th. So I was going to say Baby Metal's coming next, but it's not. It won't be next.
Womp.
There'll be something else. But yeah,
We'll figure it
maybe
out.
we should set up a timeline.
The long and short of that is we don't know yet. We'll know eventually. But we'll try and get better at this. Like I said, it's episode 1. Luckily, we have some experience in content creation, but we're old.
All been
We're
live.
post 30.
We used to do Twitch. Just whatever happened live happened. We never planned anything, so this is new.
Yeah.
Planning is new to us.
And eventually, maybe one or a few times here and there, we'll live stream the podcast too, because I think that'd be a cool experience to have chatting along with it and all of that. But for now, it's going to be a pre-recorded thing and all of that. So work along with us as we try and navigate from being just go livers to pre-recorded, and we should have our shit more together type of content creators. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this. Honestly, we went about an hour. That's going to be kind of our sweet spot, somewhere between 30, 60, 75 minutes, something like that. We'll see. But let us know what you guys think. If anybody's even watching in the first place for the first one. If not, then we're going to keep doing it anyway, because this is also just for us. So, to close us out, thank you for rocking with us. My name is Smiggy.
I'm Ryan.
And this is Rock Rants starring Smiggy and Ryan. This was Sleep Tokens, even in Arcadia. Thank you again for rocking with us. We'll figure out what we're doing next week. Love you all. See you next time.
Take care, everybody.